it's always good to be able to be here and share thoughts, because as Alex and I were talking this morning, that's really what it's all about here, is sharing our thoughts and getting other people's feedback as to, do we think we're on the right track? Yes, we are on the right track, or maybe we could be on a better track. So even with our small group here today, it's wonderful to be here. And a couple of days ago, we always say when we were trying to think of what I was going to talk about, Ken was in our living room watching the TV, watching something that I didn't want to embrace at that moment because he likes some of the stuff that I don't. So I took out my iPad and I was looking through it, and I was on one of the, I don't know if you call them networks anymore. I don't even know what they are, because there's so many different apps for different shows and stuff. And I came across on Peacock a title that I thought, this is really unusual. This is very, very different. I kind of want to know more about this. But as soon as I pulled it up, I realized it was a reality show, and I hate reality shows. There has never been a reality show, I'm sorry if anybody is into them, but there's never been a reality show that I've been able to embrace. I turn them on, and after a very short period of time, I'm like, this is not reality. This is completely staged, and I don't know who they think they're fooling. But when I pulled up this one, and as I said, the title was what got me. It was called, and I don't know if any of you have heard of this, The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. Now, maybe some of you have heard of this. Maybe there are some people who have a Swedish background that know what this is about. I did not. But from the title alone, I found it something that I really had to look into. So I said to myself, hating reality shows, I will give it 10 minutes. And after I'm in it 10 minutes, if I don't like it, it's off, and I will never embrace this again. You know, I won't look into it again. I started watching the first one, and what this really is in Sweden, they do believe that they address death more than like we would do it in the United States. We kind of like don't want to think about it. We push it to the back. You know, when the time comes, we'll deal with it. But it's not something that we realize is a part of life. We look at it as a fearful part of coming to the end of our time on this earth. So with that, they put the show together. It's actually narrated by Amy Poehler, who was part of Saturday Night Live years ago and has had an amazing career. And she does the narrating. And what it is this word, and I can look it up afterwards, but it was not something I could easily say. But what it is this show that they put together where they bring 3 Swedish professionals, if you want to say it that way, over to the United States. The first 3 shows that I've seen, because I did get to the first one, loved it, did the second one, said, okay, I'll give the third one. There were 8 episodes. But there is the organizer, whose name is Ella. Okay, these are all people that are really from Sweden. She comes with a gentleman who is the decorator, interior decorator, whose name is, it's spelled differently than it said, but it's actually UN. And the third one is a psychologist whose name is Katarina. She is the younger one in the group. But as they come together, and you're waiting for this to be just like crazy, ridiculous, the whole big thing, you find that you're really absorbed into this because they're coming very gently to make changes in a person's life to help them unclutter. But what I realized through this was it was not uncluttering just their closets or just their furnishings. It was uncluttering their minds, uncluttering their lives, uncluttering the pain that they hold in their heart. And that is what kept me watching this. So I just want to go through a couple of the things. I see smiles in the back of the face, so somebody needs to unclutter back there, but whatever the case. But anyway, so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the episodes, because what I want you to get from this, how me thinking this very silly reality show touched me so deeply that after I watched these 3 episodes, I ended up looking up this phrase this death cleaning. And it is a very, very real thing in Sweden. And it is, there's a word for it that I'm going to tell you about a little bit later, but it is based on a book that was written earlier on before this became, a series. And it's just been from 2023. So it's new, and there's 8 episodes, and I can tell you I'm absolutely going to watch the rest of the episodes. I may even convince Ken to watch them with me. But the first one was about these 3 who come over from Sweden and end up going to this woman's house. And I think you have to put yourself into this, where you ask them to come and unclutter you. And I'm not going to say unclutter, it's unclutter. So the first woman they come to is a woman who's 75 years of age. She lives in a house by herself. I think she had been married years and years ago before, but it didn't. They didn't stay together indefinitely. And she was a lounge singer. So she was kind of like a very outgoing, aggressive personality who had been all over the world, all over the country. And she would be, like in a chorus, or she would be singing in a lounge. And she was just a crack-up personality, really, really interesting to listen to. A little of it was like she made the Swedish people go, oh, like that, because she was very outgoing and aggressive. But when you went into her house, there was clutter everywhere. It almost like, even watching it on TV, you felt unnerved, but it wasn't like a hoarder. It was just stuff. You walk into one of the rooms, and on the whole 4 walls are pictures of her with famous people that she met along this career as a lounge singer. So they're everywhere. She had pictures of her with Kevin Costner. She had pictures with her with other people, and I can't remember all of them, but they covered the whole walls. So you walked in and you didn't think, oh, that's wonderful, look at that. You just felt like, what an overwhelming situation. And then they were asking her, she still worked. She was being a realtor, and she was doing something else. So she needed space in her house to do that, but all of her areas were taken up with things from the past. And she started to tear up at one point because they said to her, what is it that you want? And she said, I want to find peace in my home, and I want to find peace in myself, and I'm not finding that. So what happens along the way is you've got the organizer who says, okay, well, now we're going to clear these messes here because you can't find peace here. It's not a peaceful setting. And she comes with red dots and yellow dots and green dots. And she walks around with the person and says, this is Ella, the organizer, I want you to look at things that you absolutely don't want anymore. That doesn't mean that they didn't have some memory for you, or they didn't have some meaning for you, but things that you look at and you don't want anymore. And she goes, and here's your red dots, and I want you to go around these rooms, and I want you to stick red dots wherever you want to stick red dots. And so she's walking with the woman, and the woman's like, I don't think I can. I don't think I can. Well, do you still want that? Do you still? And she goes, I don't want it, but I can't give it up. And you realize that with this organizer, that this woman was living in her past, which we all do. So I'm not putting blame on anybody. She was living in the past of the lounge singer that she once was, the 30-some-odd-year-old person who just had the energy to go and do whatever she wanted to do, the joyfulness of being with people. And they said to her, well, what's going on in your life? And this may not be in the order that these things happen, but she said, I feel so lonely now. I'm surrounded by all these things, but I feel so lonely. And she had costumes. There was one whole room that was complete costumes, racks and racks of costumes that she wore in her shows, if you want to say it that way, beautiful costumes. And they're like, well, do you still wear these? Do you still want them? And she said, well, I can't give them up. I can't see that come to an end. Again, living in her past existence. So red dots went everywhere. There were times where the red dots became a yellow dot, so that was a maybe. The I definitely want to get rid of it became a maybe or a later. There were green dots where it was like, nope, we're not getting rid of anything. Okay, so fast forward a little bit through this, and now she's realizing that it's the past that's holding her back from being happier in her home and in her present life. So now here comes a psychologist, because you're thinking, okay, well, now the decorator says, well, what do you see this as? So I'll go back to the psychologist. Decorator says, what do you see this as? And she goes, I'd like to feel more open. I'd like to use this as my office. I'd like to feel just content in here. And he has a vision of how he's going to take these pictures off the wall and what he's going to do to make this a more open space. However, how do you let go of a lifetime? And how do you let go of a lifetime that you loved? So that's the hardest part. So all the pictures come off the wall, right? And the decorator starts taking them out of the frame and whatever, and he puts the pictures into boxes and different things, and he keeps some of them. And she had also collected a lot of artwork. So some of the artwork, it's like, is there a red dot on this? Is there a green dot? And that became how the decorator and the organizer worked together. In the meantime, you're seeing this woman in such an emotional state because she asked for these people to come help her. But part of her wants to let go of this clutter, and other part of her wants to hold on to it. We're all like that. We all want that. You know, okay, well, I'd like to feel, you know, more space in my home and more peace, but these things have meaning. The psychologist comes along and says to her, what if you took these beautiful, beautiful gowns and costumes that you have and did something with them? You know, you don't have to get rid of them. You don't have to throw them out, but give them to someone else. Give them to a place where they can be honored for everything that you put into your life for all those years. She's like, I never really thought about that. I never thought about it. And then it was the same thing with the artwork. And it became the kind of situation of, okay, am I getting rid of this? And will I forget everything that these meant to me? And no, because what happened is, and I'm again fast forwarding a little bit, they took her gowns and they took it to a show review. I want to say it was a transvestite type show. It might have been that. It might have been, there were a bunch of different places, show places, singing and everything. They took her costumes and they donated them there. And they were very happy. The place was very happy to have them. And so she got to see those costumes that she loved and were so much a part of her life become part of a musical review somewhere else. She ended up having artwork that, you know, some of it was very, very different from different countries, different places. She took it to a place that was happy to take these in and let people use it almost like a combination museum and purchase and everything. So now, even though she was letting go of them, she lived on. She lived on by seeing these things brought to different places. So a lot of tears through that time, a lot of recognition of what was going on. She did not want to give up the life that she had before. And I love the fact that even though the decorator really did spruce up the house and the room that she was going to use as an office became a lovely space, and the organizer was very like, okay, you know, this is either going to go, this is going to stay, but gently. But you know what? If you change your mind somewhere along the line, then the red dot could become a yellow dot. So there was this gentleness to it. And I have to say, I was mesmerized by this because it was getting a job done, but realizing that there was emotion that played into what was going on in that house. So at the end of this first episode, she ends up where they meet in a lounge, in this lounge where there's a review, where whatever it was. And out comes these singers in her costumes, and she's viewing it, and she is just breathtaking that all of her beautiful costumes are being used and will be remembered. And she's sitting in the audience, and the three Swedish people introduce her and say who she is. And now she's invited to come up and sing for them like she did in the lounge before. And so she's thrilled because she gets to perform again. After that, they ask her to come back one day, I think it is a week, to perform for them like lounge type of music. So her life did not end with the fact that she was 75 years of age and her house was in clutter and she was lonely. It now began again, but it began in a different way. And that's what these three lovely Swedish people gave her, the opportunity to realize that at 75, at the end of the career that she loved, there really wasn't an end. There was a new beginning. And with the new beginning, there was the lack of, she didn't have the loneliness anymore because she was now a part of other people's lives and they were a part of hers. So anyway, great lesson. I'm looking at that going, okay, you know, I turned 70 in February. That has been a big awakening for me because now I'm trying to be very introspective and I'm trying to, you know, like look at things differently and absorb and understand. And I'm looking at that and saying, okay, well, you know what? That's true for all of us. Maybe we need to like have new beginnings, but we don't always know how to find the new beginnings. They gave her the opportunity to do that. Now I'm going to give you the second episode because now I'm really hooked. And I'm like so touched by this because I thought it was TV and you know it's not completely off the cuff and you know it's not only reality because it is probably staged, whatever, but it was done in such a gentle, loving way with Amy Poehler's sweet voice, making little, you know, comments in between and cajoling them when the tears got, a little bit overwhelming. The second one is about a woman who is 55 years of age and she is diagnosed with lung cancer and it's terminal. Now, to look at her, she looked put together. She looked like she was doing well. She said she had her good days and her bad days, but she was told it was terminal. And now here we go. She's not technically an older person, but still life is something that may come to an end for her sooner than later. So they come into her house, all three of them again. And they say to her, her house is beautiful and she lives on her own now. She's separated from her husband because of different things. And she comes in, they come into her house and there's no clutter in that house. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. But what was happening was because of what she was going through with illness, disease, and living with this, you know, because she wasn't dying at this point, she was living with it, that she too was held back in a certain way. She recognized that the end of her life was going to come. There was not going to be a happy cure ending for her. But other things were taking place. When they went into her closet was filled with beautiful, beautiful work clothes. And I don't even remember what she did for a living. But the closet was completely filled. And she said every time, and her bedroom was not a happy, bright, beautiful place to be. And they said to her, what do you need at this stage of your life? Because you know that time is coming to end, but what will make you feel happier? And she said, I spend a lot of time in my bed now, and this room does not make me happy. This room makes me feel even worse, that I can't find my peace here. And not because it was cluttered, because it just wasn't uplifting. So in that, the decorator comes in and says, okay, I get what you're saying. This is not a very uplifting room. Your walls are all gray. they're not, it's not uplifting. You've got great carpets, you've got great, bedspread. We need to make this more uplifting, more peaceful for you. They open her closet, and as I said, there are tons and tons of beautiful, beautiful, probably pricey work clothes. But she said every time she opened the closet, all she thought about was what she couldn't do anymore, which work at a job that she loved. That wasn't part of her life anymore. She was told that energy-wise, she knew herself, but energy-wise, she was not going to be able to be that career person anymore. And also, I'm sure was told by her doctors, this would be zapping. This would zap your energy. So she looks at the clothes and it makes her sad. And here comes the organizer that says, okay, where are the red dots going? And what can we save and what can we do? And she says, I can't give these things up. These were my clothes. I was so well respected in my career. So she said, I'm having a hard time. So she did look through things, and the organizer helps her, red dot on this, red dot on this. Chances are you're not going to wear this again, whatever the case may be. The decorator is in the other room analyzing what he's going to do with the walls. And the psychologist is standing there and saying to her, which I have already said to you, you are having a hard time parting with this closet because it was a life that you loved and you were good at. And now you're not going back to that life. Hanging in the closet is one beautiful, beautiful, long flowing dress. And she said, I have never worn this dress. And I know I probably will never wear this dress because where will I wear it? It's a party dress and everything. She said, I got it before COVID. COVID came, the tags were still on it, but I don't want to get rid of it. And the psychologist said, don't get rid of it. You'll have a reason to wear this. You'll make a reason to wear this. So she does give away a lot of the other clothes, red dots, keep some, donate some to other places, whatever. And the psychologist says to her, what is the biggest troubling thing that you're going through right now in making peace with your, eventual passing? She said that none of my friends want to talk about what's going on in my life. None of them want to talk to me about the fact that I have this terminal cancer and that I'm going to be coming to the end of my life. And I have pushed them away, not wanting to burden them, but now I miss the fact of somebody sharing this with me. So again, I'm just trying to show you the process of how the three of them are working together. And at the end, they end up making a big dinner for her and a party, and they invite all of her friends. And to this party, some who hadn't seen her for a while, some who have seen her but don't sit and talk about things with her. And at this gathering, she walks in and there's all these people, and she just is in tears saying, oh my gosh, all of my friends are here. All of my friends are here. So the dinner starts and she stands up and says, I want you all to know how much you have meant to me. And I want you to know that I do have terminal cancer, but I don't want you to not be a part of my life. I want you in my life, and I want you to be able to be comfortable enough to talk about it with me and me with you. And what is she wearing to that party but the one flowing dress that she never wore before, that she never thought she would wear, is now something that she is adorned with. And so the brightness in her personality on that day and what they did for her, even though it seems like a small thing, okay, we put red tags on this, whatever, they ended up doing her bedroom where it was fluffy and beautiful and lots of pillows, and it was just beautifully lovely. And when she went in and she saw the room, she said, you know what? I can be sick in this room, but I can be well in this room. And so it was giving her an ongoing chance that while she was still alive and able to function, she had a beautiful room to do it in, but she knew when she needed to take time and to restore herself, that was the comforting place to do it. Again, I am now in tears going, oh my gosh, this show is unbelievable. Who would think that you would get all of this feeling from this, because this is all what we go through. This is all what we're all living. These moments of, oh my gosh, I need more than I'm getting, or I need to understand life a little bit more. Okay, last one I'm going to, and the reason I'm telling you this is because this is not about somebody dying, and this is not about somebody being 75 years of age. This is about a young family who I liked them instantly, and they were just a very effervescent family. And it's about the mother who calls them in. She's probably in her late 30s, early 40s, and there's 2 daughters, I believe, and a husband. She calls them in because in her home is just massive amounts of furniture, massive amount of furniture. Everywhere you looked, and it was inconsistent. Some rooms had ones that were more ornate looking, other rooms had more modern looking. It was just inconsistent, not wrong, but inconsistent. So the decorator, the organizer comes in and says, so what is it here that's bothering you? She said, there's just things in here that I have that my mother gave me. Now her mother is still alive, but in a home, that my mother gave me, that she said to me, I want you to have these things. I want you to have this dining room table, and I want you to have, you know, this vase and this and that. And she said, and they're all here because I'm honoring my mother. My mother wants me to have this. And the decorator says, do you like these pieces? And she goes, no. And there was a big, gigantic dining room table, which, I mean, it looked like it belonged to someone else and needed to be someplace else. And they said, do you want to put a red dot someplace? Do you have any things you want to put red dots on? And the woman walks around and goes, yes, this table, even though the table meant the world to her. She just did not like the table, and it made her unhappy every time she walked in there. And that's what the decorator was trying to say. You're keeping pieces that somebody wanted you to have. The person is still alive. But is it making you happy? Because if it's not making you happy, you walk through your home all the time, and your home is not the place that you're feeling the most comfortable. So of course, red dots started going everywhere. There was some of the most unusual artwork that I've ever seen that people painted or different things. And she just kept, and she would try to put it into her daughter's rooms as they were growing up, and they were like, please take this thing out of here. It's scaring the hell out of me. There were pictures of people with eyes that just looked like, you know, it just didn't belong in young people's rooms. So then it would go down into the basement. So they'd go down into the basement with the organizer. The organizer would say, are you ever going to use these things again? She said, no, red dot, red dot, red dot. Decorator is looking at how he can redecorate the room. And the psychologist comes up to her and says, why do you have all these furnishings and vases and paintings in your house if they're not making you happy? You know, if you can say that that table that you know, was your mom's isn't making you happy, what is it doing there? And she said, well, my father left when I was young, and we really didn't always have like a house, and sometimes my mother didn't have a job, and these furnishings here, my mother would say, I want you to have these. I want you to be able to have something. And the psychologist points out to her, when your mother said this to you, what she was wishing for you is that you would have a home and you would have security. It wasn't about the furnishings. The furnishings were what she gave you because she had them and she could give them to you. But it wasn't the furnishings. It was her wishing you to have a steady home, a husband, a family. And you took all this furniture, and what the girl realized is the things that make you happy at one point of your life when you're younger may not make you happy 20 years later. So a lot of that stuff went, the paintings went, everything went, and the psychologist tried to again say to her, you are not dishonoring your mother by getting rid of these things, but what you can do is donate this table, which was quite an old dining room table, to, you know, an auction, or donate it to a, you know, a place where people come to refurbish furniture. or give these paintings to an art gallery. They had tons and tons of violins in the house. The family is all musical. So they had tons and tons of violins. And the reason being is because music meant a lot to the family. They all played in this family of four. They all played music. When she was younger, she had a piano and she had a cello. And she preferred the cello, but when her mother didn't have a job and couldn't afford things, the cello that was rented had to go. The piano that remained on. So the woman says, I went and bought all of these violins and all of these things because I felt like I always wanted to know that I could have music. I could play what I wanted to play. So again, organizer says, okay, well, do you need 6 violins? Do you need all of this? She said, no, in fact, I could figure out which ones are the best. So she did that. They donated the rest of them to a music program. So the violins the ones that she discarded went to a music program. So with that being said, what the psychologist was saying to her, what the decorator was saying to her, and what the organizer was saying is, keep what makes you happy, keep a memento of things, but don't let all of that become where you're living a life that isn't true to who you are, because that is never going to make you happy. So I found it to be very, very interesting because the whole family, and this was a young family, the whole family was so lightened. And even the young daughter, who I think couldn't have been more than 8, when they said to her, well, how do you feel? She goes, I feel lighter. I feel good. Now that might've been a phrase that they put in her mouth, but she said, I feel good. And I never liked those pictures. And so she was being honest about it. They were living more the life that they were meant to live, and not a life that somebody else had decided was right for them. So I wanted to bring this to you because not only do I think that the show has validity, but also for the fact that we all live a life like that, where we're either living in the past, because I know I do it, I'm great for living in the past, or we're living with what we think we should have because somebody gave it to us and maybe it doesn't work for us anymore. And years ago, there was a reverend who said to me, and I always remember this, your memories are in your heart and not in your possessions. And that stuck with me forever because it is true. So before I leave you and say that I felt touched by this, I felt that there was great meaning in what these 3 people were trying to do. Yes, they had created a TV show, but I think they had created a little bit of heart for people who were stuck with their clutter, stuck with clutter in their minds, clutter in your hearts. And all I could think of the other day is, I wish I could take a red dot and put it here and put it here and put it places to get rid of the clutter that stays in my brain sometimes, because all I could hear sometimes is the negative chatter of things that don't please me so much. So I wish, if you see me walking around with red dots on my head, you'll know what that's all about. But the last thought that I had as I was looking at this and thinking we could all benefit from having these 3 lovely Swedish people in our home is how we all have to learn to let go of what doesn't work anymore. And as I thought about that, I said to Ken the other day, what happened to that pewter metal horse that my mother and father had that was about maybe 14 inches long, 12, whatever, and about this high, that used to appear on their bar downstairs when I was growing up and went to many of our homes, right? It's followed us numerous places. Now, years ago in my younger mind, I thought, oh, this is something really, there's a story behind this. And that's why my parents had it on that bar downstairs. Well, the story was, it came with a bottle of liquor, all right? And all these years, I have been bringing this metal horse with us no matter where we went. But the other day I said to Ken, where is the metal horse? Because when we had our house in Lilydale, there was I think we had it there. There was a fireplace, so we could keep it there. But, we really don't have a place for it now. And both of us have no idea where it is, but we know we kept it. So it's probably in one of the basements or one of the storage areas someplace. I now need to go get that metal horse and get rid of it, because the memories that I have of my mom and my dad, the memories of Ken has of his parents, again, are really not in those possessions at all. They're in our hearts. And so that's what I wanted to bring to you today and leave you with today. And if you're feeling that you need to unclutter body, mind, spirit, house, closets, maybe we all just need to go get some red dots and do it on our own. We don't necessarily have to call this 3 Swedish people in to do it. But thank you for letting me share that, because I thought that was really an amazing experience. And I know that I will be, when I go home, I will be watching the other 5 and just seeing how that goes, because if they were as good as the first 3, they'll be great. So thank you very much for listening.